welcome to a new episode of Vyapar, a show where we explore the journeys of entrepreneurs and the businesses that they've built. With me today is Rupin Paul, who is a comedian who's also been doing stand-up comedy for the past 6 years. And believe it or not, he's worked with everyone in the industry. You name it. Kenny Sebastian, Vipul Goyal, Kanan Gill. You get the drift. And here's what's interesting. I found out about Rupin through FinShots. I was just going through YouTube. I was looking at some videos and I found out about Rupin through FinShots. And, I was thinking like what he's doing is very interesting. And, he explains complex finance topics in a very easy to understand way. And then I just checked out his profile and I was just amazed with all the stuff that he does. So he is also a host of 2 podcasts and he also has a blog on Medium. And when I asked Rupin, what ticks him, like what, makes him feel motivated, it's not, it's not money or it's not fame. He just wants to impact people. He wants to, bring change in their lives or, just create more impact through his stand-up comedy, through his podcasts, through his blog and everything that he does. It's just about creating impact. In the end, that's all that really matters, isn't it? So Rupin, welcome to the show. And, my first question to you is, why did you choose stand-up comedy? Like, did you have a moment in your life when you just knew that, this is something that I want to do with my life, that this is what I see myself doing?
A couple of moments, Siddharth, and I had a few realizations that, led me to do stand-up. I think the first thing is I was very shy throughout my life. I still am to some extent. But I think when I was in class, believe it or not, when I was in class 12, on the last day of college, like all my friends who know me, my friends know me, but they know that I'm funny, but only they know that I'm funny. No one else in the class knows that I'm funny. All the other people in the class don't know that I'm funny apart from my friends. So then the last day, everyone was imitating teachers, okay? And they were doing such a bad job about it, okay? They were like really horrible. And they said, like, Rupin, you just gotta go, man. Like these people are destroying it. They're not doing it properly. Just go. And I've never spoken in public before. So I just went and I imitated a couple of teachers and the entire class of 112, I think, they were in my class. And they all were laughing. And that felt really good. It's like, oh my God, like all of these people think I'm funny too. That's really good. So that was clue number 1.
Wow.
And there was a girl, her name was Arundhati. And she told me like, hey, you should consider becoming a comedian. And I said, yeah, I am considering it after this, right? And that was one moment. Then the other moment was, I knew that live stand-up was happening in Bangalore. I think somewhere when I was 18 or 19 years. But I thought it won't be that funny. I thought it'll be like, how music is in India. Music in India, most of the bands that play music in India are very similar to bands that play music in England and America and all of that, right? So I thought like even comedy in India would be very similar to comedy in America and won't be genuine to India. So I didn't go to a comedy show in India for a long time until one day I went. Okay. And then I saw the comedians over there and they were incredibly funny. They were, I think a very young Biswa Kalyan was there. Like young Biswa Kalyan. Like he had just put in about 6 months. He had 2 jokes that worked. And he would look at it, he'd write it down on his hand and he would do those 2 jokes that'd be really funny. And then he'd be like, the other jokes he'd be like, okay guys, I thought this was funny. It's not funny. Okay. And then he'd just like go on. And I saw all of that and I realized these comedians are really funny. And they're really creative and they're 100% original and it makes Indians laugh and it's done by Indians. So that was clue number 2, but I still didn't have the courage to do comedy and I didn't see it happening in my life. All right. And then the final point came when I was in my master's, and this was a degree that I worked for. And it's a degree that I was 100% sure was like the way for the rest of my life. It was a degree in computer science. And while at the first year of degree, I don't know what happened. Something happened, and I hated the course. I hated like the way the course was. I hated computer science. I just didn't like it suddenly. It didn't seem fun at all. And I considered leaving the course, and then I realized my dad had paid like a lot of money to get me into the course. So it just felt wrong. I said, okay, I'm going to complete it. But after I complete this first year, I'm gonna do something that I like. I'm gonna make sure I enjoy myself. Okay, so I started taking part in like a few things in college. There's something called as Just a Minute. Do you know what Just a Minute is?
Just a minute. I've heard Just for Laughs. No.
Just for Laughs is a show and a comedy festival in Canada. But Just a Minute is basically you speak continuously for a minute without taking pauses or making grammatical mistakes, and you try to be funny. Okay.
Wow.
So yeah, I took part in one thing and then I won that event. Then I took part in another, then I won that. Then I took part in another and I won that. And I was making everyone laugh and I was just entertaining all of those people, right? I'm just seeing that audience thing. I realized this is what I got to do. And before an exam, like before one of my exams, I just messaged a friend who's doing comedy. I had a friend who's doing comedy. Okay, it's not like comedy was completely strange to me. Also, like I
Yeah.
had a friend, and also like weirdly enough, can you believe it? Like this, I think like my dad also is really funny. Okay, like he's really funny,
It's
and
genetic.
it really is, buddy. And he also did a comedy show like before me. Yeah,
Wow.
he did a comedy show, and it was really funny. And actually, he was performing at the place in Bangalore that had comedy. He was trying out comedy. He just said like, anyway, since it's open to everyone, what am I going to lose? Let me just go and try it out. Okay, I saw him
Mm.
doing it, and I realized like my dad can do it. I'm 100% better than my dad, right? For
Oh,
sure.
wow.
Like, so then everything came together, and after like my horrible first year in college, I said, okay, now I have 2 months of vacation. I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to start doing comedy. So I just told my friend. He told me like where to get started. I showed up at a place at a venue for comedy, and then I said like, hey, I'd like to put my name. And there's a guy called Sanjay Manakala. Who do you know Sanjay Manakala? Have you heard of
I
Sanjay
have
Manakala?
I have no idea, but you have no idea.
You have no idea. Right. So he's a very famous comic. He's right now in the States, and he's from the States, came to India, set up comedy in Bangalore, then went back to the States like this year, actually. So he put me on, and like, yeah, and that's how I realized the first time was very bad, but I had like one laugh or two laughs, and then I realized, okay, I can come back next time and I can improve it. And I just kept showing up. And
Mm.
that's when I knew that, I'm going to, that's what drew me to comedy. Like it's a series of events.
And it really brought out the best, like it brought out all that creative energy inside you. Like you told me that, like when you were doing the course, you realized this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I think like when I first spoke to you, I also realized that you had a very early realization. For a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people, what happens is that we start doing something. Like I'm a chartered accountant myself, and
Right.
I just gave 5 or 6 years to this course, and then I realized, this is damn, I'm stuck now. So I realized it very late in my life that, this is probably not something that makes me excited. But I think what worked for you is that you had a very early realization, isn't it?
Could say that, yeah. When I was 21, I just realized that this is not what is going to make me happy. Yeah.
Yeah. And how has this journey been so far? I'm sure that, you must have had your ups and downs, and, a lot of it's not easy to make it big in the stand-up comedy platform. So how has your journey been so far?
It's been a lot of changes, if I can say that, and I think that's the good part, and that's also the most. If I have to like look at the one part that stands out in this entire journey, is that it has been filled with changes. Like no one year is like the previous year. Every year keeps changing. Every year keeps getting bigger in some small way, but it keeps getting bigger, right? And it also keeps, one thing leads to another. Like whatever you start, right? When you have like a mission in mind, like one thing kind of
Yeah.
leads to another. Like you start, like when I started doing stand up, like for example, I didn't want to do other stuff. I just wanted to do like
Mm.
only comedy and only like live shows and all of that, right? But then
Yeah.
like you work your way and you get recognized, and once you start getting recognized, people start booking you for shows. Once people book you for shows, then you have to write more
Mm.
content. And then I think a couple of changes happened. Like I also started doing
Mm.
comedy full time since 2018, which means I said I was still working in IT, even though I
Mm.
graduated from IT and I took a job, and I was doing comedy with IT, managed both. Just like how probably someone manages like
Yeah.
two relationships. It's not possible. You can't do it, right?
Yeah.
You always really like one, but you just have to. I guess
Compromise. Yeah.
that's why you can't. Yeah, you can't really do it. It's not ethical. It's really not ethical. So after a point, like
Yeah.
of doing comedy and your thing, you can't do two different things. It can't be like two widely different, and both require time and effort, right? So I
Yeah.
think in 2018, I made the shift from doing comedy with my job to doing comedy full time, since I
Mm.
was always already making the same amount of money that my job was paying through comedy. So that happened, and I started writing more material, started recording videos, putting up videos on YouTube and all of that. So like there's always a new project that comes up, there's always a new project that I give myself. Like when in 2018, my first project was I'm going to do a podcast. Then in 2019, I'm saying, okay, I'm going to work on my blog. Now it's 2020. Now my idea was to just get on YouTube and to be on YouTube as much as I can. So like, and I think every you know like what your next step is going to be. And the best part of this entire thing, like, you know, like my friend, I have a friend called Sudarshan, and he told me like, dude, when you do something which is a dream of yours, right? You may be out of money sometimes, but you'll never be out of work.
Yeah, that's so true.
And
that's so true.
That's so true, because there's always something you can improve on a little bit. Just a little bit. I'm going to just work on just a little bit tomorrow. I'm just going to put a few bricks.
I feel, you know, all those invisible gates start opening up. Like when you start doing something and you realize, you know, this is also something that I can do, and new opportunities start coming to you, like something that you never even thought of, you know, like this is something I would do in my life. All those invisible gates start opening up in your life.
Yeah, for sure.
So
like for example, like even the thing that I'm doing right now with FinShots, like I would never have thought that I'd be doing it. Right? I would have never have thought like such a job exists. This is such a cool job, right? And like it's so lucky. Like I have no idea how I got this lucky with everything. Like I didn't work towards it at all. Like I don't have a degree in finance, but I don't have anything. Like I remember I studied a subject called commercial applications in class 10, and I hated that subject. It was the worst subject in my life, right? But now I'm doing it and I absolutely like it. And I enjoy doing it just because I'm telling, like I'm on YouTube and I'm telling stories and I'm creating this content, right? So you like whatever you said about, you know, new opportunities opening up, that's absolutely true. But you just need to be on a journey, and I think you never know that where the journey is going to take, but you kind of know the end goal. I know what the end goal is, like what I want. So everything that I put in is just to get to that end goal.
So this is not to flatter you, but when I first saw you on FinShots, I was actually thinking, you know, that you are a like MBA in finance or something, because the way you explain it, it's just, even people who are MBAs or chartered accountants, you're better than them. I can just tell you don't even need a degree for that. So that's how
I don't think so. I don't think so, but I'll take a compliment and appreciate it. But I think that's props not to me. That I think that is props in large portion to the people who write the content, which is not me at FinShots. But I just retell the story. So like what I think, if I would give myself any credit, is like I tell the story like, you know, as though I would understand it. That's all. But it's majorly not my part. And I think that has also been like a thing of mine from the beginning, even while doing comedy, right? When I started doing comedy, like, you know, I wanted to use comedy even as a vehicle to, like, you know, break down stuff, to like break down difficult topics, to break down difficult things. And that's what comedians do. Like all the comedians who I admire, right? Like a Chris Rock, like he would break down like the entire racial problem in America just through comedy, or like a George Carlin. He'll break down like the entire situation with what's wrong with America, why there are so limited opportunities, just through comedy. And so I think I really like, you know, the process of simplification through art.
That's amazing. I mean, seriously, and it's not that easy to do that, because, you know, such complex topics, to break it down into such, I think it takes a lot of experience, and it's just about, you know, practicing day in and day out. Like that's how you get there.
No, I think it's a belief. I think it's a belief system more than practicing. The belief system is that no, like even a CA or whatever, whoever you meet, right? Like this is, I think, where comedians come into play. Like the reason why comedians exist in society is because they believe that no one is above a certain level. Like you may be a CA, right? And like I may not have studied like anything in accountancy, but at some point you're just the same as me and I'm just the same as you, right? Wow. So it's to kind of to equalize a society, because like you see people who are lower than us and they feel that they're lower than us. So you kind of have to lower yourself down to them so that they feel that you're one of them. Likewise, with people who are higher than you, who are acting higher than you, you got to make jokes at them, at how they think that they're better than you, to bring them down to your level so that the entire room is equalized. And I think that's you know what I mean? Yeah. So there's just a belief thing. It's just a belief that there's no information that's really difficult, or there's no level of thing that, you know, that's really inaccessible. Ultimately, we all are the same, and we all are human beings, and we all are intelligent in a very intuitive way, because we are all human beings, right? So like, you know, when we are afraid, we react a certain way. When we are in a safe place, we react in a certain way. And it's just that I think like once you realize that all human beings are kind of the same, they're going to get it. Like even like while doing comedy, like the first time I came to do comedy in Bombay, I was 22 and I was 22. Yeah, 22 exactly. And I was really afraid. I was scared. I was like, these people in I've never been to Bombay. Like, I don't know how they're going to, I don't know how they talk there, how they walk there, whether they're going to like me, whether they're going to hate me. And then I realized it's the same as people in Bangalore.
It's all
They're the same. There are some idiots, there are some nice people, there are some cool people, there are some beautiful people, there are some horrible people, right? It's just the same. So ultimately it all looks the same. So I think once you realize that it's, you know, it's like simple, and like even if it's difficult, it's basically the ultimate truth of it is very simple.
We're all human beings.
We are all human beings. They're going to get it. Yeah.
Wow, man, that's really, like, I've never really thought about it that way. Like, you know, the entire equalization thing, it's a great perspective to have. So that's amazing. And you know, one thing I would like to ask you is that imagine that, you know, someone was listening to this podcast and they want to start a career in stand-up comedy. What advice would you give to them? Like, what are some things, you know, they need to keep in mind, and like what are some misconceptions out there?
Dude, the advice is that I don't have any advice. It's the greatest job in the world. There's no job that's better than this. Right? Imagine how lucky some, like all of us are, who are doing comedy, that you get to go on stage, get to have an audience, and you get to make them laugh. First thing I would say is like I'm just like, you know, rewinding the time that I started stand-up. Okay. And the one thing I would say is just stick to your jokes and be as funny as you can and be as original as you can. And if you're really original and if you're really yourself, you will be noticed. Even if it takes years to be noticed, even if it takes months for people to even know your name, you will get noticed in time. All you need to do is, you know, be as funny and as original as you can, and also keep improving. Like the worst thing is to not improve at all. And this is at any level in stand-up. And I think that's the most important part of retiring old material and writing new material. Like if, for example, like if you come to a show now, right, and it's like all the material that I'm going to do, I'll make sure that you had not seen any of this material on YouTube. And once I put it on YouTube, I'm going to retire it and write new material. So I think the best thing is to learn how to not be emotionally attached to your act. You got to improve it, get it to a really perfect stage, and then you have to retire it, and then you have to start working on a new act. It's like it's kind of like having kids continuously. You can't get attached to one kid. You got to get attached. You know, invest in that kid, send that kid out of your home, and then have another kid, and then invest in that kid, and then send that kid out as well at the right age. Yeah.
Because the audience is very brutal, isn't it? Like if they see your joke on YouTube and you're doing the same joke on a, you know, in a gig, then they'll very easily discard you. Like, you know, this guy does not have any original content, isn't it?
No, yeah, I guess, but like the only case in all of us where all of us comedians would do a joke that's on YouTube is if you're doing a highly paid corporate gig or a private gig, right? Where they say we only want like clean jokes and really neat jokes. So there I won't take risks with the audience. But if it's a public show, right, where people have paid tickets to watch, then I take a lot of risk and I do a little more riskier subjects like sex and all that.
Okay, so corporate gigs are like they take the creativity out of it. Like they're very
I don't know. Like, see, like doing a comedy show at a corporate office must be the coolest thing anyone can do at a corporate office, right? Like working is horrible in a corporate office. But what I am telling you is that even doing comedy at a corporate office is horrible. Because they treat you badly, dude. Like they don't treat like corporate. The problem, I don't know what happened in something that got messed up when human beings started working in like a corporate office. Like we stopped treating people like human beings.
It's all machines.
Everyone's a machine. Like for example, like there was this, like I have a joke in my YouTube video. Okay, the joke is basically how my parents are Christian. So Christian parents, you know, they'll give the advice in the prayer itself. They'll be like, "Dear God, please help him get a job." Right? So like that was the thing. And as part of the joke in my YouTube video, I say Christianity is quite a horrible religion, right? Because you can understand the prayer. So you know if your parents are worried about you in the prayer. And this guy, I was doing a corporate show he said there was just this, and it was just because it's a meeting, right? And corporate people like having meetings, love meetings, right? They had a meeting with me before my show. And I think one of the main points that this guy noted down in his notepad was, there's this joke that you do. You won't say Christianity is a horrible religion, right? First of all, he was Hindu.
Are
All
you
right.
serious?
Like, I'm Christian. Yeah. Like, first of all, dude, don't tell me about like, what my act is. I am sensible enough to not say certain things at certain places. I may be a comedian. I may be funny, but it's not like, I don't understand human behavior and human, where I should be appropriate, where I should be funny. So corporate people have that thing. They have the thing that we are better than you. And unless we tell you what to do, you're going to screw it up.
Yeah. So they're basically like, we are paying you and we are going to control the entire gig our way.
Yeah. Which is why I never worry about money. Like you were telling me, right? Like in the beginning, like I don't worry about money, because the thing is, as soon as someone gives you money, right? As soon as someone gives you their money, it is their way of saying like, hey, I'm going to have a say in your life.
That sucks.
Yeah, that really sucks. And that happens to everyone. This happens to like people throughout the industry, like throughout every industry, the entertainment industry, like finance, everything. Like the more money you make, the less freedom that you get when it's someone else's money. Whereas it's your money, you doing business by yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're more in control of your time. And I think that's a way more important asset than money.
So you guys must really hate the corporate gigs. You must be avoiding those. Like it's only when you want real, you wanna just pay the bills or just get the money.
No, I actually enjoy the corporate gigs. I enjoy majority of the corporate gigs. I just don't enjoy the corporate people. I just don't like them. I like performing. I like working for I like making the employees laugh. I don't like making the managers laugh.
Okay, yeah.
They never laugh at anything. Like no managers ever laugh at anything except for like one show I remember, because all the other audience members had left to have dinner, and only the manager was there because I paid for the entire show. So at least I'm going to watch it. And he was laughing. So he was a chill guy. Okay, but everyone else, like I always take the side of like the people who are working, like regular people who are working in the below the team. Like those people, I really enjoy making them laugh. I cannot make managers laugh, and bosses decide not to laugh. And committees, especially, the thing is when you go to a corporate show, what happens is they all sit with that committee, right? Like I'm in the planning committee, which is the cutest committee, by the way. The planning committee, that's the best, right? Like they are taking time off from their families to stay back after work to plan an event which people are really not willing to attend. Everyone wants to go back home. Exactly. And these people are planning that, are staying back a little longer to plan another event where they're going to stay back in office more. Yeah, but like I like doing corporate gigs. I like making people laugh, dude. I think people, the best type of comedy is when you make comedy, when you make people laugh who have been through some sort of pain.
Yeah, that's good karma for you.
Yeah, and I think like in a corporate office, there's so much of unwritten bondage in so many offices.
It's slavery. Like honestly, people don't say it out loud, but at some point in life, if people didn't really had to make money, if everyone had enough money, no one would be doing their jobs. Honestly, that's what I feel.
It's pretty sad, yeah. But I also believe that it doesn't have to be that way. Like I know like a few offices that are, and a few organizations in the world where it's not that way at all, where people have freedom. And I think I can't say like all corporate offices are bad, but yeah, like a majority of them are, they forget that people who are working under them are as human as them.
Yeah.
So
I have another question that came to my mind was like, do you ever feel like quitting? Because as a stand-up comedian, you really have to be very strong mentally. And like, for example, you told me that you had this one gig, very very big gig, and all your jokes were not like, it was not connecting with the audience, and you felt horrible. Like you were breaking inside. And how do you deal with such situations, like when you had a gig that didn't work out for you? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I've never thought of quitting, buddy. Like I've never thought of quitting. I've just been sad at times. Like I think like I don't know how old you are. How old are you?
25.
You're 25, right? Like even my, like all the people in my life, like all the people whom I love, who have been with me from the beginning, since the time we met till now, right? Like all of us, like we've had like even my parents. It's not like all the time we've been on great relationships, right? Like some days you just hate each other, the next days you just like each other back, right? So the same thing with stand-up also. You like, I've never thought of quitting stand-up.
Wow.
It hasn't occurred to me at all. I've just been really sad at times because of stand-up. Okay, because like someone said something really horrible or someone
Mm.
didn't pay me at all,
That has
and they
happened?
said you are horrible. Yeah, this one time it happened. It happened, I think, last year. Yeah, like that day, I really felt bad. I really felt like, hurt like by the entire process, because I was doing this show, and I had like a couple of things. Even though I was doing comedy full time, I did like three things. I went to a college, and I took a class for them, or like, teaching them how to communicate. Then I went and worked out in the gym. Then I was also, teaching English for like some construction workers, kids, right? Just to fill my time,
Mm.
and to be productive. And then I had a corporate show. It wasn't too much of money, but I just taken the show because I needed that money at that point. And he said be there at 5:30, and I was so tired that I was sleeping while driving my car. It was like I had to call my friend. It's like, dude, just talk to me because I'm going to crash otherwise. All right. So he did that. I reached at 5:30. There was no audience over there at 5:30. Then I
Wow.
waited. Then 6:30, slowly the audience is coming in. 7 o'clock, still not started.
Shit, man.
7:40, it started. All right. And then afterwards, the keynote address given by the CEO. What a boring keynote address. Everyone had to sit through that. And I didn't know what to do, dude. Like I was just sitting in my sitting in the lobby. And I don't know if you know this, but if you're in a hotel lobby and you can't sleep in the hotel lobby, do you know this? You can't just
Yeah.
sit on the couch and you can't go to sleep. There's someone will wake you up and be like, "This is not the place to sleep, sir."
Mm.
Right? So I was really tired and I couldn't sleep. And then finally my event started at 9:10.
Shit.
The audience wasn't there. They were all drinking and eating, and they were doing like boomerangs, Instagram boomerangs. And I tried getting on stage, telling a few jokes. No one cared. Tried some more, no one cared. Tried some more, no one cared.
Oh.
Then I was supposed to do 25 minutes. And 10 minutes I said, "All right, guys. Anyway, you guys have a good evening." And I left. Thank you.
Mm.
And this guy, the event manager, came. He yelled at me. He made a scene. And like he said, like, and I told him, like, dude, it's okay. Like, if you are upset with this, like I can't really help it. Then I grabbed him by his hand and I showed him, this is the audience he made me perform for. Remember that.
Yeah.
All right. And then afterwards, he said, like, see, you were going to get your money, but like now I don't even know if the client is. He said, if the client is not giving the money, that's all right, man. You do whatever you want. Like, and I told him, like, hey, if you want to give me the money, give me, others it's all right. And I don't have to work with you again. And he said, I'm not going to pay you. And I didn't even have the energy to fight. I just took my car and I left. And the only good news, the only good ending of the story is, like, after 5 months, I saw this guy at a show, right? And his tire was punctured. That's the only thing I know. That's the only good thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's happened. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But so I've just been really sad. I've never thought of quitting at times, but I've also been really happy. And I always say this, the good times, right? Like in comedy, like when you do really well, the good shows, they outdo the bad shows and they make up for the bad shows also.
Yeah. So it's all about the consistency.
Yeah. I don't even know if it's a consistency. I never tell it's like, it's just like, it just feels right, dude. Like some things you feel like I have thought of like quitting things before. Like I used to play music, right? And I thought, okay, I'm never going to go far in this and I'm going to quit it. But with comedy, I've never had that thought. Like even though this pandemic has hit things badly, like I'm waiting for all this to get over and get back to working really hard at, doing stand-up every day.
It feels very natural, isn't it?
It just feels natural. It's like, it's the same thing even with anyone, dude. Even with relationships, right? There are some relationships you just be like, I need to leave this. But then once you find like the right person, it just feels so logical to be in it.
Yeah, you feel
and
it
it's so
in your
easy
soul.
To be in it.
You feel it
exactly. You do feel it in your soul. Yeah, it's a connection. It's a connection, and it's like a thing that's there. It's like, I'm not going to leave this.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. That's amazing. And okay, so this is my last question to you, and this will probably get you in a little bit of trouble. But you have to tell me.
I don't mind. That's the good part of not being famous.
You have to tell
even
me.
If I get into trouble, I get into trouble after I become famous. If I become famous, but I have no problem. I don't mind. Yeah.
So, who is your favorite comic?
I have that's the question. This is not going to get me into trouble at all. I like. There's a comic whom I like called Bill Burr.
Oh man, seriously.
From the US. Yeah, I love Bill Burr. That's my favorite.
He's my favorite comic. He's my favorite.
Oh yeah, man.
I listen to his videos on Conan, right? Like I'm in a loop. Like when I start playing one video, I'm constantly listening to him.
Yeah, he has that thing, dude. Like he just draws you in, and you can't get enough of him.
And he's a genius. Like I feel the way he explains stuff, like he's just,
Yeah,
he's very angry. That's what I feel with
yeah,
the stuff he
yeah.
says, but the genius of it,
Yeah, yeah.
amazing.
That's also the thing. Like I was also telling you about how like comedians break down stuff very simply, right? Like the same thing with Bill Burr. Like regardless of who you are as a person, he'll always break it down to someone who's in the same bar.
Yeah,
He's just like, dude, that guy is not anything great, dude. Like this guy is not anything great. Like he doesn't joke right now. He said like women are so overrated.
yeah.
Yeah,
That
and he
they
didn't get
got
into any trouble.
that.
That's because he's just being funny, and he's just like, he's just putting it in a way like, this is just comedy, and we all are not that great in life. We all are just human beings.
And it's
Philosophy
very,
towards the
very,
comedy. Yeah.
very relatable. Like whenever I listen to that guy, and I'm like, I can 100% relate to him. Like everything that he's saying,
Yeah.
he's very honest as well. Like I feel, sometimes people, like when they're comedians, I feel like if you're very, very honest, it sometimes
Yeah.
backfires. But this guy is like
Mhm.
100% honest. And
Yeah. He tells it like it is.
yeah, wow.
Yeah.
That's like, I just feel so pumped up that your favorite comedian is the same as mine.
He's
Like,
my favorite ever, man. Like I actually,
dude,
I actually booked tickets to go see him in London last year. Unfortunately, that plan didn't come through, but I still booked tickets. Yeah, I thought like maybe I booked the tickets first and then somehow it will come through, but it unfortunately didn't. But I'm a huge fan, dude.
you gotta bring him to India, man. Honestly,
He
like,
came to India. He came to India in the year 2015.
wow.
Yeah,
I
he was there in India. I think he performed at a auditorium in Bombay. Sadly, I didn't go because I didn't have the money to afford tickets.
Shit, yeah, man. But like really, man, this is like one of my dreams. I really wanna attend one of Bill Burr's special. Like this is one of my dreams in my checklist. And
That's
like,
on my bucket list too. Like my bucket list is to watch Bill Burr live.
tell you what, we can both go together.
We should. We totally should, dude. We totally should. And we should on the way we should try to go to Bangkok as well to see a Muay Thai tournament.
That's in the cards then. That's in the cards, definitely.
That's in the cards. Yeah, but I don't know if you guys know, like people are listening to this podcast, but Siddharth stayed in Bangkok for 15 years.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
many people know about it, and I honestly I don't prefer telling people about that time in my life, because then the first thing that they ask me is that I know that you've done everything.
Oh,
So
yeah, like, hey, dude, I know, like, is your favorite sport ping pong? Yeah, I
yeah,
know, I can imagine, dude. But you were a
and
kid that time. You were like before 16, right?
yeah, but a lot of stuff goes down before 16. Also, a lot of stuff goes down there. So yeah,
Oh, like
it's
what?
people do stuff, man. And in Bangkok, like I have had friends who have done stuff, like not me, but my Thai friends when they were 14 or 15, they probably they knew everything. Like they had done everything there was to be done. And
All right, okay.
yeah, so like they were not excited in their lives anymore. I was like,
Oh,
you've done
that's pretty
everything.
bad, dude.
Yeah, that's bad. I mean, you save something for the
Yeah.
future, isn't it? Like you save some, yeah. So
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah, yeah. I think like if you enjoy like everything like super early in life, then you don't have anything to look forward to, right?
yeah. I mean, you should do it like organically. I feel like just slowly, like climbing a mountain, like not like a
Mm.
jet ski, like not at one go. Just climb a
Yeah,
mountain. Do it that way. So that's why I don't
yeah.
tell people that I'm from Bangkok, because then I get all these sorts of questions and I don't want to answer them. I
That's interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's absolutely right. Whatever you said, like people experiencing everything young in life, right? And I think like even people who are child stars, like Michael Jackson, towards the end of their life, they have nothing new to look forward to, and they kind of hate their lives, and they're looking forward to going back to the childhood where I can be like innocent and easy again.
Yeah, it's not exciting anymore. You told me that
Yeah,
you're doing something new every year. Like you're starting a podcast, then
yeah,
you're also doing
yeah,
FinShots. Now you also have
yeah,
like something planned for the next year. Then this is something that keeps you excited, and
yeah,
like you're this is something I'm really happy that this is happening in my life. So I
yeah,
think
yeah.
I think that should be there. Like you should have something to look forward to in your life.
For sure. Yeah, like when you wake up, there should be like, hey, dude, there's this cool project that I'm going to work on, and then you get your ass out of bed.
Yeah.
As opposed to just like being in bed. the whole time, and you'll be like, there's nothing, there's nothing new
Hmm.
for me to look forward to. And I think that's also I think when you ask for advice towards comics, right? Like writing new jokes is such an underrated joy in life. Like when you write like a new act
Hmm.
and you put the old act to sleep, right? By putting it up on YouTube. Now you have something new to create. So it's exciting, dude.
The entire process must feel like such a, like it feels good to just do it. Like even if it does not work out, when you're doing it, like you feel very good inside, isn't it?
Oh, it's beautiful. I can't tell you how amazing it is. Like, because you have all these new jokes, okay, and that you go there. It's almost like when you go into like a new, like, go to meet your family and you bought a new car, right?
Ah,
Because you're going to go to the audience and you feel new. You feel like, okay, there's an excitement that this may work, this may not work, and I'm going to see how it's going to be. And then you go on stage and you get into that emotion of that joke, right? And then you start doing it on stage, and then you feel like, oh my god, this is working. And then at the end of the show, you'll be like, oh, I have like a new bit. And then you want to work on it, and then you can't look forward to a weekend show when you can do a longer set of jokes and you have all this new stuff. And it's a new feeling that you have because the crowd reacts to reacts to you differently, like how they, unlike how they used to react to you when you had your old jokes. And now you're looking forward to putting all of those jokes together and, putting it for the next video. And you're trying to go, you're taking those jokes to Bombay, you're taking those jokes to Chennai, Calcutta, like Hyderabad, wherever place you're booked at. And you're taking tips from other comedians, like, say this line instead of that line. And then you sit and you rewrite everything. And you think about it, and you get another funny line while you're thinking about it, and then you put it together. It's such a beautiful process. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. I can feel it. I can feel it in your voice, like just when you're explaining. Yeah. You can tell, like even the listeners who are listening to this, just in your voice.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. And like I would love to, just talk to you for the next 2 hours. But given that we have to keep it short, unfortunately we just have to take and cut off. I would love to do more shows with you. Like this is just one podcast, but if something works out, then like probably we can also plan more stuff. Like I just had a really good time doing this with you.
For sure, I had a good time too, man.
All right, Rupan, it was great having you on the show. And people who want to find more about Rupan, I'll drop links in the description. Do check it out. He's an amazing stand-up comedian, and all the stuff that he does, it's amazing. And believe me or not, you should check him out. When I first saw his YouTube video, my first thought was, how in the hell is he getting so few likes and so few views? And he deserves more views. So
it's very interesting that you mentioned that. Like, there's a lady, I forgot her name. I think she did a reaction video on my stand-up video. Wow. And I think she has way more subscribers than me, which was, I thought, very interesting. Yeah. But it's cool. I'm happy with what I have. Like, even like, I think I have totally the last video I put, the last stand-up video, I think it's 456,000 views, right? And I'm happy with that. Like, a lot of people, and it's impacted, like, I know that it's impacted a few people. A lot of people said, like, we are happy about, we really relate to this. And I'm so happy that you said this out. And I've sent this video to my parents so that they know how it is to be a kid in India and all of that, right? Dude, and I'm happy. I'm just happy with whatever I have.
I'm gonna be your lifelong promoter now. Like, you don't have to pay me anything.
That's too much pressure. That's too much pressure. If I do something bad, then
no, I'm not gonna
goes downhill for you and me.
So that's good, right? That's gonna make you like perform well for everything that you do. So
it's too much pressure to do that. Yeah, cool, buddy.
All right, man. All right. So people, that does it for today's edition of Vyapar. If you know someone who has had a fascinating journey just like Rupan has, you can reach out to us at vyaparpodcast@gmail.com. Do let us know what you think of the show. You can reach out to us. I would love to hear what you have to say. We will see you next week.
Thanks, guys.